Move out. You're obstructing a pregnant woman gently caressing her belly, Alicia instructed. I pondered Alicia's comment, wondering if pregnant women truly displayed a kinder expression. Observing the malice on Alicia's face, I shot a quick glance at David. You can sleep in the storage room, Alicia suggested, and David concurred. My lifelong love for him waned instantly, though a touch of sentiment lingered, leaving me somewhat melancholic. All right then, I replied, and in response, David happily took Alicia's hand. Alicia gazed dreamily at David, and witnessing their intimacy replaced my melancholy with anger bubbling up from within. I'll leave by tomorrow, yeah. Oh, maybe you should stay out tonight after all. This is now mine and Alicia's home, David proclaimed joyously. I nodded slightly before exiting the house, contemplating what lay ahead and cracking a smile. My name is Catherine Taylor. I'm a 46-year-old housewife. Before marriage, I worked intensely, but that was over 20 years ago. Nowadays, I enjoy daily chores and sipping coffee, just an ordinary middle-aged lady. But my hobby is investing. I've been doing it since before marriage. Recently, I've been earning significant dividends, treating myself to lavish hotel brunches and spa visits, leading a pretty elegant life. My husband, David, is 40 years old, a salesman for a major company. He's gained quite a bit of weight, and frankly, he's been rather smelly lately. But he's good with words, given his profession. He may look big, but I love him. I felt he should probably lose some weight for health reasons, but he had this cute, mascot-like appeal, so I didn't see the need to force him into a diet. David and I have a daughter, Emily. She inherits David's features, slim, almost model-like in beauty. Not just in appearance, she's academically top of her class and excels in sports, even making it to national competitions. She's also humble and works hard. It feels like we, the geese, gave birth to a swan. Both David and I dote on Emily, and we've often been told we're overprotective. David has a bit of a weak spot for younger women, but he chose to marry an older woman like me and cherished our family. So I thought a little wandering gaze here, and there was inevitable. We lived in a condo we bought around the time Emily was born, but it was getting old, and they were considering raising the maintenance fees. Recently, amidst all this, Emily decided to share an apartment near her college. At the same time, one of my relatives approached us about inheriting a now vacant house. David and I decided to renovate that house and move there. But who could have known that this would cause issues between David and me, which have been smooth sailing up until then? The condo we had was a 4-bedroom, including a guest room, but the new house is just 2 bedrooms. Although it's smaller than before, considering our retirement, we made it a single story, and it's been very comfortable. One of the rooms, which serves as a study and a guest room, can be divided to make an additional room for Emily if she ever comes back. David started coming home late every night to work dinners, and somehow always found reasons to go out, even on weekends. Sleeping next to David, who would come home reeking of alcohol and cigarettes, was unbearable for me, even if we had separate beds. Because of that, even though we originally shared a bedroom, I've been sleeping in the study ever since we moved. When it came time to send out moving announcements, I mailed letters to various places. David isn't good with that sort of thing. So I took the initiative to send letters on his behalf to his family and relatives. As for me, since my parents have passed away, I simply wrote a brief note and sent it to friends and relatives on my mother's side. I haven't been in contact with any relatives from my father's side because of my half-sister, Alicia. Alicia is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. When I was in 7th grade, my mother passed away, and about 6 months later, my father remarried. Alicia was born to him and his new wife at the time of their marriage. Alicia was already 2 years old, so I initially thought it was a union of 2 families with kids. About 5 years into their marriage, my father and his new wife were involved in an accident and never returned. At their funeral, relatives from my dad's side told me that he and his new wife had been childhood friends, and everyone had always thought they would end up together. However, My mom had set them up through her boss, and my dad felt he couldn't refuse, leaving his childhood friend out in the cold. To think that behind their smiles, my dad had a child with his second wife was a huge shock to me. Every time we had a family gathering, Alicia's favorite foods were served. She had brand-name clothes, and she got the biggest room all to herself. If she said she wanted to go somewhere, they'd take her immediately. Meanwhile, I was burdened with all the chores, from preparing meals to doing laundry. I had to work part-time jobs, and all the money I earned was taken away. I also had a small storage room under the stairs, and I had to beg for even basic necessities. By the time Alicia was in elementary school, she had heard about my mom from the relatives and started looking down on me. I worked several part-time jobs to save money and finally moved out. It was impossible for me to harbor any positive feelings towards Alicia, and I never told her about my marriage or that I had a child. A few weeks after moving, I was having tea and relaxing when the doorbell rang. When I answered, a man's voice mumbled delivery, and on the screen was a person looking down. I thought maybe David had ordered something and opened the door, only to be left speechless. "Oh, Alicia, why are you here?" "Hi, sis. Long time no see. Just thought I'd drop by," Alicia said while wearing the hat I saw on the intercom. She wasn't a delivery person, but my half-sister. Without waiting for a response, she walked past me, entered the living room, and sat down on the couch. I followed her in a hurry, stood in front of her, and looked down. "I figured you wouldn't open the door if you knew it was me, so I used a recorded voice. That's just low. Geez, you're scary." I raised my voice at Alicia, and she feigned fear in an exaggerated way. However, it was clear she was just putting on a show, and the proof was that Alicia had a smirk on her face. "I came for a visit," Alicia said, speaking nonsense, getting a cold response from me. Yet she grinned and started explaining the reason for her unexpected visit. "But sis, you never even told me where you live. I got married, but my husband is always on business trips, and it's getting boring. Plus, once my belly starts getting bigger, moving around becomes a hassle, right? Everyone told me to come stay with you. Just go home. I don't even want anything to do with you." "Well, too bad. I already came here planning to stay with you." Listening to Alicia's audacious words only irked me further. Under my breath, I muttered, "Typical of a kleptomaniac's daughter." Hearing that, my anger reached its peak. "Get out. I never want to see your face again." "What's all the fuss about?" "People outside can hear you," David said. I was at a loss for words, surprised by David's unexpected return at such an odd hour. As I struggled to explain, Alicia stood up and walked over to David, intertwining her arm with his. David didn't seem to mind. In fact, he looked quite pleased. "Oh, Alicia here. Welcome, David. My sister was being mean. I thought it'd be nice to stay with you until the baby is born. But is that okay?" "Of course. I'd be thrilled if you're okay with it. You can stay as long as you want." I stood there in disbelief, silently observing the exchange between David and Alicia. The intimacy they shared seemed more like that of lovers than mere siblings-in-law. "David, what's going on?" I managed to utter, but he dismissed me, accusing me of being jealous of my cute little sister. His words left me speechless, considering I had confided in him about my family situation before our marriage. "We have a spare bed in the guest room. You can stay there," David offered casually. Alicia seized the opportunity, expressing her desire to sleep in the same room with him. Their mushy conversation gave me a headache, and as they went to the bedroom arm in arm, I couldn't shake a bad feeling. Peeking into the room after several minutes, I discovered them embracing each other, living out what felt like a dream for Alicia. "The baby is thrilled too, living with Daddy," Alicia exclaimed, dropping the bombshell that David was the father. As they kissed, I watched through the crack in the door, tears streaming down my face. From that day on, they treated me like a housemaid. I complied, but silently began gathering evidence against them, contemplating divorce. One day, Alicia arrogantly demanded I leave the room, claiming she, a pregnant woman, needed space. The spiteful look on her face contradicted the gentleness usually associated with expectant mothers. Looking at David for support, he sided with Alicia, causing any lingering feelings I had for him to vanish. Still, a touch of sadness remained as David happily took Alicia's hand, sealing my decision to leave. "I'll leave tomorrow," I declared, prompting an elated David to suggest I find somewhere else to stay that night. "This is now my and Alicia's home." I subtly nodded, leaving them to enjoy their laughter while they could. Stepping outside, a grin formed on my face as I contemplated what lay ahead. That night, I checked into a hotel, making plans for the next phase. The following day, I scheduled a moving company and headed to City Hall to start anew. Excitement and thoughts of newfound freedom kept me awake, but my spirit remained high. To my surprise, upon returning home, I found the moving company already confused, as the house appeared empty. A small box with a note greeted me, containing some of my cherished belongings carelessly thrown in. Adding insult to injury, David's wedding ring lay at the bottom of the box. Anger surged within me as I discovered the house in disarray, with evidence of David and Alicia's escapades. I led the movers to pack their belongings, then found a note on the dining table announcing David and Alicia's 6-day trip abroad and requesting the house to be cleaned. The note mentioned that the divorce would be finalized upon their return. David's utter self-centeredness left me dumbfounded, but his absence made executing my plan much easier, and secretly grateful that I had the movers pack all my belongings, I left David's wedding ring on the kitchen counter before departing the house. After some contemplation, I purchased a place near Emily's university, which happened to be on sale. The one-bedroom apartment was cozy, and I cherished the solitude it offered. On the day David and Alicia were set to return, my phone incessantly rang. Without checking, I knew it was them. Answering with a nonchalant hello, I was met with David's frantic voice demanding an explanation. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted. Remaining calm, I replied, "What do you mean? What's going on?" David, fuming, informed me that the house was gone. Bursting into laughter, I explained, "Well, it was my house, and if I'm not going to live there, why keep it? We were living there, weren't we? Don't worry, everything's safely stored in a storage unit. I'll text you the location and access code." David demanded I bring back the house, but I retorted that it was under my name, and the money used to build it was from my investments, not a dime from him. David seemed to recall his lack of involvement when the house was built, a fact he had conveniently forgotten. Claiming the baby to be his niece or nephew, David pleaded for me to do something about the house, as Alicia was in a tough spot. I informed him that I had known about their relationship since Alicia barged into our house. I had been gathering evidence, including recordings from a high-end baby monitor Alicia had me buy during a fit. The monitor captured everything, even in the pitch dark. Upon revealing this, David was at a loss for words. Cheerfully, I mentioned that the mailbox might have something for him. David checked it, discovering a certified mail. I explained that it was about the payment, and there was one for Alicia too. Unfazed, I insisted it was compensation for their betrayal. Ignoring his plea to talk to his lawyer, I ended the call. A barrage of calls followed, which I ignored. My old phone, used for evidence, wouldn't be an issue if left alone. After an hour of incessant calling, David seemed to give up. The attorney reached out, sounding weary. The next morning, a relative from my father's side called on my new phone, likely having obtained the number from Alicia. Expecting scolding, I recorded the call. The relative demanded an apology to Alicia, who was pregnant, and insisted on a new house as compensation. Unyielding, I refused to apologize to the woman who had an affair with my husband. I asserted that Alicia should apologize and pay compensation. When accused of being a kleptomaniac's child, I retaliated, stating that Alicia's actions were reflective of her father's betrayal. I instructed them to relay a message to Alicia to never get involved with me again, though I doubted she would have the chance. Hanging up on the babbling relatives, I felt the refreshing release of pent-up emotions. I contacted my lawyer, determined to bring Alicia and David to justice. The thirst for revenge lingered until I witnessed the dumbfounded expressions on their faces during our discussion at the lawyer's office. Alicia appeared utterly miffed, while David wore a grumpy expression, showing no remorse. Surprisingly astounded, rather than angry at their self-centered comments, I laid out divorce papers in front of them, accompanied by another set, the marriage license, offering a reduction in compensation if they signed the latter. David snatched the pen from me and signed without hesitation. Alicia, smirking, followed suit. Placing the signed documents in a folder, I gave them a big smile. "I'll submit these to the county office," I announced. Alicia, with a dumbfounded expression, tried to argue, but I revealed that the divorce was already finalized in mediation the day before. Her lack of awareness stemmed from disregarding multiple summonses. As Alicia and David processed this information, I dropped another bombshell: the possibility of David denying the father-child relationship with the unborn child. Alicia stared in shock, and David, realizing the potential consequences, looked pale. Between compensation and child support for another man's baby, I wished them luck. However, David attempted to reconcile, citing Emily's presence. Just as he changed his tune, the lawyer's office door swung open, revealing Emily. Her harsh words stunned David, frozen in shock, while Alicia, insulted, shook with rage. Emily cut ties with David, expressing her intention to live with me, referring to Alicia as that loose woman. Unable to respond, Alicia faced Emily's verbal onslaught. I delivered the final blow, revealing David's financial limitations and asserting ownership of the house and car. Alicia's plan to extract money seemed to unravel, leaving her pale and stunned. As I left with my lawyer and Emily, I left them to their newfound reality. That evening, having dinner with Emily for the first time in a while was delightful. I filed for divorce, and around the time Alicia's waiting period for remarriage had passed, David and Alicia submitted their marriage license. The witness section bore my signature, along with Alicia's ex-husband, who had shared crucial information. News circulated that David, involved in an affair with Alicia at work, got fired for misusing travel expenses for secret getaways. He now struggles with part-time jobs. Alicia, taking care of the child, faces financial difficulties after being dumped by her boyfriend. Her attempt to sabotage my family had backfired. Meanwhile, Emily enjoys college life, and I've been leading a relaxed life with my stock dividends. Surprisingly, I've developed a closer bond with Alicia's ex-husband, who affectionately calls me Catherine. Recently, he reached out for an important talk, making me feel a bit restless as I sit in front of my vanity, my face flushed like a smitten young woman.